5 things I wish I knew before buying that are not necessarily bad things, but at the end of the video, you'll be able to say yes or no to Armored Core with a 100% certainty. Number 1, there's no overworld. This is a mission-based game. You essentially have your menu where you can assemble your AC, and then you choose a mission to go on. You go into the arena to fight off an opponent, and some of these missions are long and some are quite short. And the shortest I've had is up to 1 to 1:30 in minutes, and it took me longer to go through the briefing, loading screen, have to listen to that AI voice tell me roughly what to do, and you skipped it. And even if you skipped everything, it took me like 3 minutes to get into the mission, 1 minute to kill the enemy or the 10 enemies that were in that mission that were holding down a city or anything. There's no story, and that was it. So you knew it was a filler to just get like $1-2 more to buy more parts. Now, it's okay that these fillers exist, but there's quite some missions they could have gathered up together to make a longer one, at least like 5 to 10 minutes, to make the loading screen feel kind of worth it. Then on the other hand, there's other missions where you have bosses and you have these giant things to climb on, and it's absolutely fantastic because you know what you're signing up for, since the briefing tells you kill the gigantic crawler. There is take out boss XYZ. And other times there are missions where you don't know what to expect and suddenly you have a goddamn boss fight on your hands, and it's beautiful. And that's also a thing. Armored Core is hard. Yes, number 2, Armored Core is hard. The filler missions and everything I just talked about, they're like, you just blast through that. You take your weapons, you feel like a god, you learn how to play your AC, you take down these puny mechs with a one shot, get your rockets out, destroy them. Very simple. But the bosses are quite challenging. Alone in the tutorial, there's a helicopter. Taking that out requires already to quite understand the game, and especially to use your melee weapon. Advice here, use your melee weapon and the left thumb button down charge to kind of get in range and really take that thing out. But the further bosses are not easier, and I'm talking here as someone that has beaten Elden Ring like 20 times, every single From Software game, Dark Souls whatsoever. It's challenging, and it's good like that because you want these boss fights to be challenging. And yes, you can adapt your AC to perfectly work in each boss fight, because sometimes your opponent is moving extremely fast and you got to change your weapons to actually work better in this fight. Which brings us to number 3. You'll spend a lot of time in menus overplaying the game, but that's not a bad thing. That's actually the interesting part about the game. I've actually stuck so long in the AC assembly, AC testing, because there is the AC testing menu where you can go on and you can test your Armored Core. You can exchange parts straight away to see what is better, what is fitting, what works against fast moving opponents, what not. Melee weapon, do I need a plasma gun to actually break a shield? Is the plasma blade, it should be the laser blade. Do I use the grenade launcher, rocket launcher, bazooka? Is the hand cannon any good? Which I used for one boss and it was absolutely insane. So you'll spend a lot of time actually playing around and testing with your Armored Core, and it might feel like you're not actually playing the game because you're not making meaningful mission progress, because you're actually just testing what you got. And then there's also this arena where you have to farm chips to passively upgrade your Armored Core, which actually don't give you any story progress, but they give you something to do, and they will challenge your skills as well, because these arena battles, if you suck, you suck. They will challenge you. They will make sure that you actually feel like you are inadequate, and to again then go back to the menu and play around with your Armored Core to kind of figure out what would work better. So if you don't like this, if you don't like the assembly part of actually sitting much in the menus and you just want to have that one OP Armored Core, it might not be that simple, because you're simply having to figure out which AC also works good for you. Since yes, the controls, number 4, the movement, everything, the Armored Core piece of gliding, of dashing, of boosting, of, having to track your opponent, lock on rockets, all of that stuff. It seems overwhelming at first, but once you really get into the game, it becomes quite simple. But despite becoming quite simple, you have 4 bumpers to use. So you have like your shoulder pads, then you have your left cannon and your right cannon, and then you get a dash boost to the left, right. You can aggressive boost forward. You have to look out that your stamina is not being broken by the enemy, and then you have to at the same time look out that you're not using up all your energy so you can still block the opponent's swings. And there is shields or not shields, and that comes together with the AC assembly again. It can be quite a lot in a fight, and it might be, especially in boss fights, quite overwhelming to get everything together handled, that you're actually able to, yeah, not just continuously be stamina broken by the boss, that he just doesn't, you know, have you held down. And especially you need to use the melee weapon too. It's one of the most important tools to close a gap, to take someone out, to stagger a boss, to break their shields, to do immense amounts of bonus damage. Without my melee weapon, I could have not killed this gigantic looking Dalek-like boss, because you really needed to do the bonus damage to take him out. And if you're a bit scared of getting there close, and also if, you know, you struggle with everything going on to really think about what to do in the situations despite watching some guides, the game is definitely not for everyone, because Souls games are a bit more measured in their tempo. Yes, you have the music blasting and the bosses doing delayed attacks and whatsoever, but from a visual standpoint, it's quite clear. Boss swings swords. You roll through sword. 1, 2, 3. Then you hit. Whereas here it's kind of like, okay, there's 400 rockets coming out of this guy, and I will take some. There's no way I will avoid every single one, but I'm a mech. I'm okay. I can take shots, right? You're not supposed to avoid everything. You just take some hits, because that's just what it is. But these hits don't kill you. You just gotta make sure to not take all of the hits. Whereas in like all the Souls-like games, it was like you just don't take any hits, or as few as possible. Because one hit like takes straight away like 50% HP away, or 70%. If you don't dodge attack X, you're definitely dead. If Radan lands on your head from the sky, you're pulverized. That's like just a mindset shift you need for playing this game. But it might also be something that you just simply don't enjoy, because it feels a little bit like, okay, there's no consequences to being hit to a degree. But then in the later game, when you fight the harder bosses, you notice that, okay, there are consequences to be hit, because one of them has a gigantic flaming, I mean, I call it a flaming sword, but it's more like he's just shooting like jet fuel engine at you that cuts you into pieces. And the last thing is, Armored Core is, well, it's short. I mean, I can blast through this game in probably 10 to 20 hours. That's okay, because the game has a good replayability, since the bosses are really challenging, but there's so much AC assembly going on. There's so much different ways to play your mech, your Armored Core, that despite the game being short, every boss could offer like a fancy, fun, another challenge. There is also the PvP, and I was laughing about the PvP before, but after playing against the bosses, after playing against the arena opponents, and watching some PvP videos, you want to challenge yourself. You want to figure out if you could actually beat other people that also play this game. If your mech has it, if your compilation of legs, chest, hands, guns, microchips, boosters, if the combination of all of this actually got it to beat someone else. And with the whole package together, that really adds up to something that's a fantastic kind of game all in all, that is worth the money. And this is what I was trying to say. These are not 5 things that are terrible. These are just 5 things to know and to make an educated decision to then buy or not buy Armored Core. I was really, in the first 2 hours, it was like, we made a mistake. This is a refund. Now after 4 hours, I'm like, nope, I was wrong. It's a fantastic game, and I do not regret spending the money. Despite some of the things that flip me off, that are not so good, great game. Now, if flying mechs is a little bit too much for you, and you rather want Elden Ring with guns, how about Remnant 2?